What is going on, everybody? Wally back with another video, and in today's video we are talking about the Titan, the two subclasses, the Striker, the Defender, the movement modes, the supers, the melees, the grenades, and maybe some potential builds that you can use in PvP. So to give you a brief overview, the Titan class was my first class I ever played in Destiny. I had the beta on the Xbox, and it was the class I played on the beta, and then it was the first character I ever made. Played through about VOG with it, and then I made a Warlock, and then I made a Hunter. So I have quite a bit of PvP experience. I've been playing recently again with it to sort of get the hype going for Trials of Osiris. I think I am going to be playing Titan a lot more. So I'm going to run you through pretty much everything that I've seen over the past week of me getting back into the class, and I'm going to give you my opinion on how to best play the two subclasses. Starting with the movement modes here. Now, the Titan movement modes are derived from the lift abilities. Both the Defender and the Striker have the exact setup. So you're talking increased height, increased control, and catapult. Now, the lifts operate a little differently from the Warlock Glide or the Hunter double jumps and blinks. My best recommendation would be to get acquainted to increase control first and then move into catapult. Catapult's probably the most useful ability to be utilized in the PvP grounds because it gives you a little bit extra speed. The best times to activate it are not after you directly jump, but before you hit the ground. It sort of gives you a little bit of extra momentum and sort of slides you forward across the field. Of course, when you couple this with shoulder charge, it can be very useful. Now, speaking of shoulder charge, a lot of people think shoulder charge is just an attack or an offensive option, when in reality, shoulder charge is very, very usable as a movement mode as well. Not sure you're going to be able to hit that ledge or not going to be able to make the last leg of that jump. Utilize that shoulder charge option and you can make that. Shoulder charge gives you about an extra, I'd say about 5 feet of wiggle room for your jumps if you're trying to make a ledge or make a jump or something like that, as well as it is an offensive option. It is Striker only, I want to emphasize that, but I would say it's more useful as a movement mode than it is as an offensive ability. Of course, that's just my opinion. Take it or leave it. Next, you have the two supers, the Striker's Fists of Havoc and the Defender's Ward of Dawn. Start with the Fists of Havoc first, or it's more commonly referred to as the Fists of Panic. You have Aftermath, Death from Above, and Shockwave. Now, Aftermath is the standard AoE effect that stays after you place your super. Death from Above allows you to aim your super if you're up in the air and only up in the air. And Shockwave sends out a directional attack from the direction in which you were facing your super. Now, personally, I think Aftermath and Shockwave are probably the most useful. They're both sort of situational. And again, you can make a good argument for either or. I would say Shockwave is more useful if you're unsure of exactly how many opponents you want to be able to hit in a line, or if you're unsure if you're going to be able to get to that second person or reach them in time to activate your super. The Titan Striker super's ability is interesting in the fact that you have to be in range, relatively closer range, a bit further out than melee range, but you have to be within killing distance of the opponents. It's not the Hunter, Gunslinger, and it's not the Warlock Voidwalker supers where you have the ability to use them at range. You have to be up close and personal. So Shockwave could be a little bit more useful. However, there can be a good argument made for Death from Above and Aftermath. It really comes down to player preference. After the Striker's Fists of Havoc, you have the Defender's Ward of Dawn, or the Bubble Shield. The Bubble Shield is broken down into Armor of Light, Blessing of Light, and Weapons of Light, and they're all relatively very useful, and there could be a very good case made for all of them. So if you are a Bubble Titan, Armor of Light may be very useful for you if you want to hold down certain positions of the map and not leave your bubble, as an Overshield will be placed upon you only when you're within the bubble. It can be very useful to deal with opponents trying to wrestle a B flag or an important area from you. Blessing of Light allows you to keep an Overshield in and out of your bubble, and it also applies to your teammates. It's very useful if you want to be a little bit more mobile in the field or offer up that support option. Weapons of Light allows you to have a damage increase of 25% and of course 30% when you put the right perks in, illuminated here. So the idea with Weapons of Light is, again, allows you to be very offensive with the Ward of Dawn bubble, and it applies to all of your teammates. This one can be very, very useful, especially if you're playing games of Clash, or maybe perhaps a little bit more offensive in games of Control. Again, it's up to you. I would say Blessing of Light is probably the most balanced between the two, as it offers you both defensive ability and mobility. After the supers, we have the 2 melee abilities. Now, the defender gets Disintegrate, which on a kill gives you a force barrier, which is essentially an overshield for about 15 seconds. Now, in that, you have War Machine, Gift of Light, and Unbreakable. Now, Gift of Light is weird. Gift of Light is you generate orbs, melee kills when you have force barrier active. It can be useful, but I really don't recommend it. War Machine and Unbreakable are the 2 I recommend. So War Machine allows you to increase reload speed while force barrier is up, and of course Unbreakable means that your force barrier will constantly recharge so as long as it's up. Now, ideally here it sort of plays into what you prefer as a player and of course in PvP. I would say Unbreakable is the one I use most. However, War Machine can be very useful too, as most of the time you will not escape situations where you're going to have a portion of your shield left where Unbreakable is useful. So what could be useful is War Machine getting that added reload bonus. So with Stormfist, you have Overload, Discharge, and Amplify. So Overload allows you to, on a potential hit, there's a chance that it'll immediately reset its cooldown timer, so you'll be able to hit again. Discharge does an AoE effect, and of course, Amplify kills with Stormfist will reduce the cooldown of Fist of Havoc. Personally, I don't exactly know which one to recommend here. I would say Amplify is probably the most usable, but in reality, the great thing about this is when you couple this with Transfusion, which is another perk in the Titan Striker line, it allows you to regenerate health on a kill with Stormfist, which is probably the most useful for PvP, in my opinion. Last but not least, we have the grenades. Starting with the defender, we have the magnetic grenade, the spike grenade, and of course the suppressor. The magnetic grenade is interesting. It operates the same way as the flux grenade and the fusion grenade from the hunter and the warlock, respectively. It is different in the respect that it detonates twice on a target, so you could potentially throw it down once, or throw it in an area, or throw it at a target. It'll detonate twice. Can be very useful. The spike grenade is interesting. It's a line AoE grenade, so you throw it against the wall. It emits this purple beam that will damage opponents that walk into it. Not something I'm going to personally recommend. Of course, there's arguments that can be made that say it's useful, but in reality, most good players will just avoid the hell out of it. Finally, you have the suppressor grenade. Now, the suppressor grenade is really interesting because it removes the enemy's opponent's abilities entirely. So they can't use their super, they can't use their melees, and they can't use any kind of their jump abilities. It is very useful and arguably one of the best grenades in the game. With the Striker, you have the Flashbang, the Pulse, and the Lightning Grenade. Now, all grenades in the Striker class are very, very useful, and there's a great argument that can be made for all of them. So I'll try to break them down in sort of their usefulness. The Flashbang is exactly what it does. It blinds an opponent based on their relative distance from that grenade. So the closer they are to it, the more blind they will be. The farther they are away, the less blind they'll be. Very useful, does good damage, and it is a very bounceable grenade, much like the suppressor. The Pulse nade is an AoE nade thrown at the point of impact. So wherever you throw it, it emits this discharge that will damage opponents in it. Generally does around 80 to 100 in terms of ticks, and it can be very useful in locking down doorways or potential objective spots. Finally, you have the Lightning Grenade, which is often considered one of the most overpowered grenades in the game because of its ability to eliminate opponents and the range of damage it emits. So this thing will basically 2-tick any opponent, meaning that anytime they're stuck within range, if they get hit once, they'll generally die in the second tick because there's not enough of a break between the one and the second tick, meaning if you throw it against the wall on a flag, you're going to walk away with a couple kills if they're on that flag. The only negative side effect of this grenade is you can kill yourself with it, which is, of course, applicable to all the other grenades. However, the Lightning Grenade has a lot more range than the other grenades, and I have killed myself more often than not with this grenade as opposed to the others. My recommendation would be to use the Lightning Grenade, but the Flashbang and the Pulse can also be very useful. Unfortunately for this video, I don't have any accompanying builds of the Titan to go with it. Now, a main reason for that is I really wasn't into recording when I was playing the Titan back in the day, at least not recording builds for PvP. I also don't have a majority of the Titan exotics. For the Warlock, I have all the exotics, so I can basically mix and match and put together a very fleshed out build. I will attempt to alleviate this probably in the future when Trials of Osiris drops. I think the Titan armor probably looks the coolest for me, and it has been a driving force and the reason why I want to play Titan and I want to bring it back. If you guys want to check out the Titan in the meantime, I will be streaming, and when I'm streaming, I'll most likely be streaming some PvP, and I'll be playing the Titan. Link in the description below. Check out the stream, follow me on Twitter if you guys want more information in regards to when I'm streaming or when I launch videos. All the shameless plugs aside, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, episode 3 of the Crucible School, and more episodes on the way. You guys are great people. I hope you guys have a great day and a great week. I will catch you all later. Peace.